The elder said the food was on the dining table inside the house, and they would know the answer after eating. In the afternoon, they would also be taken on a tour of the tribe to show them the food sources. The members of the inspection team entered the room and saw the solid wood table. On the table were rice, stewed meat, stir-fried vegetables, tomato and egg soup, as well as white porcelain tableware and ceramic soup spoons. They felt that sitting on stools and leaning over the table to eat with such exquisite tableware was too grand. An old man asked if these stone bowls were only for the leader. A team member explained that these were ceramics, and everyone in the Han tribe could use them. They could also be sold to other tribes. The members of the inspection team were all amazed, hoping to meet the leader soon. Then they began to taste the delicious food. The rice was fragrant and sweet, the egg soup was delicious, and the stir-fried dishes were also very tasty, especially the stir-fried loofah with green peppers. Although spicy, it was very popular. The mutton was prepared like Northeast Luanduan, a stew. They had never eaten meat prepared in this way, and found it exceptionally delicious. They asked what the Han tribe's staple food usually was. A team member said it was rice, grown from rice grass seeds. As long as the grass seeds were buried in the soil, rice would grow. However, growing rice was not easy. It required paddy fields. The leader of the Han tribe had a way to transform land into paddy fields. The people from the survey team were very surprised to hear this. After eating, they couldn't wait to have the team members take them to see the water. 2 team members began to show the survey team around. First, they went outside the east gate to see the rice paddies and the artificial river. Learning that it was dug by hand, they were very surprised. The old man fell into deep thought as he looked at the rice paddies, wondering if they could farm like this in his own land. Next, they saw the peanut and vegetable fields and the wheat fields. They were interested in these crops that didn't need to be grown in water. Unfortunately, they were new varieties, and not yet stable for widespread cultivation. After seeing the fields outside the city, they returned to the city to visit the industries. They saw the oil press house, the manufacturing house, and the timber processing plant. At the timber processing plant, they saw windmills driving connecting rods and gears, powering iron saw blades to process timber into planks. They felt this was simply an incredible, heaven-defying black technology, something only gods could master. After the tour, they were filled with admiration for the Han tribe and for you. They believed you were the divine person from the stone tablets, and looked forward to meeting you. They wanted to see if you would be willing to lead them in resisting the cannibals and help them live good lives. Furthermore, they also wanted to know how they would be arranged if they joined the Han tribe. After all, Hanyang City was already full. The next day, 2 groups of people returned to Hanyang City. One group was the mining patrol, who, led by the Shui clan members, found graphite and borax mines. They easily gathered enough graphite to fill 2 carts, and 1 cart of borax. They transported it back using 3 double-ox, 4-wheeled cargo carts. In the afternoon, the elder and Shuwu waited with the survey team at the east gate. Around 4 o'clock, they saw you arrive, riding the poison Fong elephant. This time you returned to save yourself Ro and Huishan. The others stayed in the new city to make paper. This would help attract these tribal alliances, strengthening the Han tribe's power. You also planned to use the stone tablet prophecy to create public opinion, promoting yourself as the chosen one, and then ascend the throne to establish a nation. The people from the survey team saw you and instantly recognized you as the god from the stone tablets. They all prostrated themselves on the ground in worship. You told everyone to get up and enter the city to talk further. Afterward, you arranged to speak with the survey team during dinner, and then went home first. As soon as you arrived home, Shuwu and the elder came to report the situation. The elder said that the construction of the teaching buildings was progressing quickly. 2 buildings were already completed, the 3rd was built to the 2nd floor, and the 4th was laying its foundation. He also asked you how large a building to construct on the northern plot in the middle of the school, and if construction should start now. You said to ensure the quality of the teaching buildings first, and that your own house could wait for a while. The plan might change. Shuwu reported that the mining patrol had returned in the morning. You were very pleased that both graphite and borax had been found. You asked for the mining patrol to be invited to dinner that evening, to reward them. Then they talked about the survey team. The survey team arrived yesterday morning, bringing many wild women from the plateau, carrying several pieces of stone tablets. They had already been shown around Hanyang City. They were very interested in cultivation, probably wanting the Han tribe to teach them how to farm. You said that if they wanted to farm, they would first have to join the tribe. The three of them smiled, in agreement about the expansion and development of the tribe. Dinner was arranged on the city wall. It was the survey team's first time on the city wall. Seeing the farmland and river below the wall, they found the scenery beautiful, and also pondered the purpose of the city wall. You sat in the main seat, and with your first sentence you steered the conversation towards the cannibals. You thanked the survey team for assisting your subordinates in exploring the cannibals' lair, thus paving the way for a counterattack. Upon hearing this, the survey team members put aside their enjoyment of the scenery and became serious. After all, this was related to the stone tablet prophecy, and you, standing before them, were precisely the leader from the prophecy who could lead humanity to defeat the giants. An older man questioned your counterattack plans against the cannibals, worried they were too strong. You affirmed, saying, the Han tribe has already faced 3 cannibal attacks, and we've won all 3 times. The cannibals are not without weaknesses. The slaves in the city are captured cannibals. The expedition members were appalled and shocked, unable to believe that the Han tribe could truly defeat the mighty cannibals. Someone asked about the cannibals' weaknesses. You explained that cannibals are strong and fast, especially advantageous in forests. So, don't choose the forest for confrontation to make them lose their climbing advantage. Someone else pointed out that cannibals are also fast when running on flat ground and could still hunt down tribe members. You then introduced the function of the city walls, saying that the last time the cannibal army surrounded Hanyang City, dozens of giant apes responded to the project. They were killed by warriors before even touching the city walls. People from the Hunting Alliance complained that they couldn't build such high walls, and thus couldn't avoid being hunted down by cannibals. Rat Shaman quickly interjected, saying that as long as they joined the Han tribe, the chief would lead everyone to a good life, not only with sturdy city walls but also distributing powerful weapons so they could resist enemies on their own. A young man asked if the Han tribe could truly take them in, where they would live, what about food, and if it was based on farming. You found it a bit strange that when trying to persuade people to join the tribe, the other party was so proactive. But you soon understood that these tribal alliances believed in the slate prophecy. After confirming you were the deity from the prophecy, they had unconditional trust and loyalty towards you. Moreover, in reality, the Han tribe's strength and prosperity moved them. They could get food by growing plants, build things with machines, and had various magical tools. You asked them in return if they were all willing to join the Han tribe and counterattack the cannibals' lair together. The expedition members fell into contemplation after hearing this. They indeed wanted to join the Han tribe at least for guaranteed safety, but they were reluctant to counterattack the cannibals' lair, as the opponent was too powerful. However, thinking that the first half of the slate prophecy was coming true, they ultimately chose to believe. Everyone expressed their willingness to follow you and fight back to the cannibals' lair. You stood up and spoke passionately, saying they were not fighting for a deity or themselves, but for themselves and their descendants, to grow up carefree, without fear of hunger, cold, or enemy slaughter. You would lead everyone to ultimate victory. These words immediately resonated with everyone. You gestured to quiet everyone down. Since you are all willing to join, let's begin discussing the migration arrangements. First, tell me how many people are in each of your alliances. Everyone began to report, but the alliances had never kept unified statistics before, so the reports were chaotic. You patiently listened to the last report, only to find that these 2 tribal alliances didn't even have names. They were just a bunch of tribes gathered together. They weren't even very clear what an alliance was. You were the one who brought up the term. For planning convenience, you gave them temporary names. One alliance was located at the junction of the plateau forest and grassland, higher than the plateau forest line. This alliance had the most people, about 2,400, composed of 16 small tribes, with an average of 150 people per tribe. They primarily relied on raising livestock. They had about 600 blue-gray furred plateau yaks, which they had accumulated over many years. They also had about 1,800 alpacas with mixed fur colors, which were their main source of animal products, fighters, and dairy products. Additionally, they had fewer than 200 large-horned deer. This alliance was skilled at taming, but not strong in combat. However, they had many livestock and were good at riding, surviving the cannibals by running away when they couldn't win. You named them the Three Sounds Alliance. The other alliance had fewer people. Approximately 1,600 people composed of 11 small tribes, average population similar to the Xianxia alliance. They were active on the plateau at the border of the grasslands and southern mountains. Living by hunting, they raised a small number of livestock. Their prey included big-footed argali, which they also raised alpacas and wild donkeys. This alliance mainly focused on argali. You named it the Argali Alliance. They had over 200 wild cattle obtained through trade with the Xianxia alliance. It was learned after compilation the two alliances had a total of 37 tribes, the same number as the expedition team. Each tribe sent a high-ranking member. The combined total population was about 4,000 people. Domesticated sheep and donkeys, about 900 head bighorn sheep, fewer than 200 head alpacas, around 1,800. These two alliances were quite strong. If they joined the Han tribe, it is estimated that this year the Han tribe's total population could reach 20,000. The population of Hanyang City has not been precisely counted, approximately 5,000 people when the new district was just completed. It had over 7,000 people in the past few months. It has absorbed surrounding labor tribes. The population has long exceeded 10,000, estimated to be around 11,500 people, not counting slaves. Adding the population of these two alliances exceeding 20,000 is not a problem. If we also count the Lin tribe and New City, the labor tribes in the south would add even more people. Someone from the expedition team asked you when they could move over. You said not this year. The living arrangements couldn't be resolved. The people in the new district haven't even finished building their own houses, and there's no time to build for them, so you plan to relocate them in early spring next year, departing as soon as the snow melts. This would allow a year for infrastructure construction, building city walls and houses. Moreover, after the Hanyang City construction projects are completed this year, next year, people can be sent to help them build their new city by next winter. They will have safe city walls, livable houses, and sufficient food. Another young leader asked, do they now count as people of the Han tribe? Can they enjoy the same treatment as others? You said that as long as they agree to join, they are members of the Han tribe. They have equal rights no matter where they are. Additionally, you also promised to give them all the supplies that the Han tribe possesses and send a pair of soldiers to teach them Han language and characters. These soldiers also need to be able to protect themselves in case the other party has ill intentions. They can also escape back after things were settled. Everyone ate, drank, and celebrated. The next day it poured with rain. The expedition team members hadn't left yet because they were preparing supplies, so they rested due to the rain, but this heavy rain brought disaster to the surveying and reconnaissance team in the north. Yui and his team, led by a guide, crossed the Three Fork River mouth, traveled north upstream into the Plateau Mountains. Yesterday evening, they encountered dark clouds gathering, signaling rain. They looked for a place to shelter from the rain. Luckily, they found a cave, but there was a den of wild wolves inside. Fortunately, they had many people and also Fuha Palace and Shitsi knew soon. They wiped out all the wolves and occupied the cave. The rain was very heavy at night because of the high altitude. The lightning was particularly terrifying. They encountered a plateau thunder. Leopard thunder roared across the sky. Even the mountain itself shook. Countless bolts of lightning struck the mountain where they were hiding. Debris occasionally fell inside the cave, feeling like could collapse at any moment. Just then a team member noticed that the river water seemed to be receding. Despite the unfortunate heavy rain, the river water should have been rising, but when he looked at the cave entrance, his expression immediately changed. His face. How could this be? The river water receding? Clearly, the mountain was rising. A terrifying roar also came from deep within the cave, like a monstrous beast roaring with ancient malice. The next moment, the ground cracked open. One team member, one guide, and 3 horses fell into the crevice. The space below the crevice was large. The 2 people's screams came from below, but the echo sounded like millions, hundreds of millions of people screaming, and similar to the terrifying cries from deep within the cave. Lu Yi quickly told everyone to evacuate. But one team member, leading a horse out, was struck dead by lightning. For a time, everyone was in a dilemma. Fortunately, the cave was spacious, temporarily safe. Yu Yi also told everyone to stay away from the cracks, piled firewood at the cave entrance, divided into 2 pairs, took the male and female's hands and stretched them out of the cave entrance, hands holding short bows. They could go out once the thunderstorm outside the cave entrance ended. Everyone did as told. They endured in fear until dawn. After dawn, they discovered that every time lightning struck, the depths of the cracks would flash, like lightning exploding inside the mountain. After 4 or 5 hours, the thunderstorm disappeared. Yu Yi quickly ordered everyone to evacuate the cave. Outside the cave, everyone saw their companion's body, and couldn't help but cry loudly. At this time, the giant eagle they had released earlier flew back. Yu Yi decided to retreat first, and wait until they could send a message to the leader to inquire further. Everyone buried their deceased teammate, cut up the horse meat for rations, and retreated behind the mountain to set up a temporary camp. Yu Yi wrote a letter recording the strange occurrences, and had the eagle deliver it to you. That evening, you received the letter and learned of the death. The tribesmen were deeply saddened. Those strange phenomena made you ponder deeply. First, you ruled out the possibility of rainwater making the mountain float. The strange cries might be underground floods. responding. Then it might be lightning causing the mountain body to deform, which is the piezoelectric effect. You speculated that there might be crystal veins beneath the mountain, such as quartz, crystalline quartz, or crystals precipitated from metals. These types of crystals oppose nuclear power and are sensitive. Piezoelectric effect and inverse piezoelectric effect are common. Lightning made the crystals vibrate and deform, pushing the mountain up. The flashes in the cracks might be due to crystal vibration, the refracted electric light illuminating the mineral deposits. Moreover, crystals have good light transmission and are resistant to high temperatures. Can be used to make optical instruments and laboratory equipment. You wrote back to Yu Yi, saying you would take care of the deceased's family and asked them to properly bury the deceased. You also said there was a gold mine in the mountain and told them, under safe conditions, to enter the cave to look for gold samples and to continue scouting for cannibal gathering places. Additionally, you would have the giant eagle deliver supplies. The next morning, Yu Yi received your reply. Everyone finally felt relieved. He decided to enter the cave to look for rocks, as the leader instructed, taking only 2 people with him. The others would guard the camp, while the 3 of them would go in lightly equipped, bringing weapons, torches, and a small amount of food and water. Then entered the cave. The Hanyang City expedition team was still preparing supplies and learning about the Han tribe. You let Shu, Diao, and 2 Xiaoqi soldiers return to Hanyang City, along with the 2 Xiaoqi who previously mined graphite, formed into one general unit, divided into 2 teams and sent to 2 alliances, to return next winter. You still had many things to do. You didn't need to worry about the construction of the teaching building, but the matters of window paper and pen making were arranged for you. In addition, you also needed to make pencils, thin pens and ink sticks, perversion and movable type printing. There were many tasks. Fortunately, there were several capable individuals in the team. You assigned these tasks separately to Shouya and Mu Tongjing, having each of them responsible for one task. Once everything was assigned, you began to ponder the tribe's construction plan. The Han tribe's population was now almost over 20,000. You planned to expand by establishing strongholds, building villages within the territory formed by connecting these strongholds. Next year, 2 tribal alliances would join, bringing an additional 4,000 people. You planned to settle them on the north side of Hanyang City, at the entrance of the valley north of the back mountain, to establish the first stronghold. This was a natural pass. City walls and villages could block invaders from the north, forming a barrier for Hanyang City. The valley was not far from Hanyang City. Building a road could shorten travel time. The large area of land between the 2 places could be incorporated into the Han tribe's territory and could accommodate residents for farming. They can also develop mountain forest resources. Even the man-eating trees can be protected. You named this place Fuma Pass. The 4,000 people of Fuma Pass. You won't put the 2 tribal alliances you're relying on all into the 5 armies. You will mix them with the existing tribesmen of the Han tribe, blending them together. But some households will need to be relocated from Hanyang City. This will require a reward system. Families willing to relocate will have their allocated land become private property. They will also receive larger private homesteads and farmland. Houses can be passed down to descendants. Homesteads will be allocated per person. Males receive 40 meters in length and width. Females receive 20 meters in length and width. Land allocation for females is to equalize their status. After adulthood, homesteads will merge and separate upon divorce. There are also areas where the main farmland's output is distributed based on production. The specific amount will be calculated based on this year's wheat yield. Those who receive land must pay agricultural tax. This is to make them realize they are a part of the Han tribe and must contribute to the tribe. The implementation of the private ownership system at Fuma Pass is a pilot program. If successful, it will then be promoted to the entire tribe. To implement these policies, personnel for supervision and laws are needed. This involves land management, taxation, household registration, and other issues. You must finalize the plans before the arrival of the 2 alliances. One day later, Giant Baby brought back good news. A few scouts entered the cave. They discovered a surviving team member. They also brought back a bag of stones. You also confirmed the location of the crystal or vein. This mine is easy to extract from. From the cave, one can directly reach the mine shaft by expanding the crack. Installing a hoist will allow the ore to be lifted up. Moreover, the cave faces the river. After extraction, it can be loaded onto boats and sent downstream to Hanyang City. At this time, the transport ships from the Fudao iron mine also returned. They reported digging up some associated ore. You immediately set off to inspect it. There was flaky pyrite, black-gray crystalline bodies, and light gray stones with a metallic luster. The black-gray crystalline bodies are heavy metal minerals. You are not sure what they are. The light gray stones are galena, which is lead sulfide. Galena has a low melting point. Humans mastered smelting methods very early on. Lead dagger axes even appeared. Galena is often associated with silver sulfide. Using it to refine lead, utilizing the difference in melting points, the use of separated lead, for you, besides making bronze alloys to enhance the fluidity of the molten metal, is mainly used for casting coins. It makes the surface of copper coins smoother, and the inscriptions and patterns clearer. Currently, the Han tribe's steel production is sufficient. The use of bronze has decreased. Recycling bronze for coinage is a good trend. This meets the demand for coinage. More importantly, the silver associated with galena is very crucial. And the black-gray heavy metal minerals associated with galena are very likely argentite. With these three materials, copper, lead, and silver, the Han tribe's currency system's raw materials are almost complete. They can manufacture small denomination copper coins and large denomination silver coins. Before the implementation of the private ownership system, coins had little use. Everything was uniformly distributed by the tribe. But after the private ownership system began, private transactions and private-to-collective transactions increased. Currency can solve the problem of unequal items in transactions, facilitating transactions, and promoting the circulation of the market economy. This discovery of associated ore at Fudao is very timely. Coins can be produced within half a year before the implementation of the private ownership system, paving the way for the implementation of private ownership and foreign trade. Controlling currency issuance rights will allow one to control the initiative in trade. Thinking of these things, you instructed a tribesman to go back and tell Dali. Tell him to pull out 50 people specifically to dig for silver and lead ore. The remaining people are to continue digging for iron ore. The tribesman nodded in response. You then took a few pieces of ore and went home. Meanwhile, Yofu was on the southern grasslands, busy earning wealth for the tribe. After a tribal chief test drove the two-wheeled cart, he couldn't help but complain to Yofu. Your carts are indeed convenient, but the price is too high. It surprisingly requires so many cattle and horses just to get one. Yofu began to earnestly make his pitch. This flatbed cart is not easy to make. First, you have to cut down towering trees, then let them sit for a year until the wood is completely dry. Only then can it be made into wheels and planks and then assembled. This process is both time-consuming and labor-intensive. Everyone involved in making carts would be busy making carts, so they wouldn't be able to farm. They would have to rely on cattle and horses to help cultivate the fields. That's why I'm asking you for 2 cattle and 4 horses. It's really not much. And think about it, just this one flatbed cart, the things it can carry far outweigh what your 2 cattle and 4 horses can manage. You'll definitely make a killing if you buy it. Surita listened and felt there was some truth to it. He immediately bought 4 carts in one go. But Yofu didn't stop there. He started to promote other goods. Suritu was quite willing. However, he wasn't planning to trade for white wild animals. They could buy cheaper ones from the new tribe's caravan. When Yofu heard this, he secretly gritted his teeth. This damned new tribe. He immediately decided to go settle scores with them. After all, this time they brought 2 squadrons of heavy cavalry. On the other side, the elder of the new tribe's trading party personally led the team. He was determined to trade for a cart from the Han tribe. For this purpose, he brought many supplies as bargaining chips for negotiation. A small leader ran up to the elder and said, "Elder, there's a tribal chief named Suritu up ahead. We've traded with them before. This person is quite good." The elder listened and decided to go to that tribe to rest for a bit. Immediately, the small leader rode quickly to Suritu's tribe. From afar, he saw people practicing driving 2-wheeled flatbed carts. Suritu was among them. He hurried back to tell the elder what he had seen. The elder's spirits immediately lifted upon hearing this. He immediately decided to speed up and rush over. If they could buy flatbed carts here, then they wouldn't have to go all the way to the Han tribe. But when they arrived, a dilemma arose. How could Surata bear to trade these flatbed carts he bought at such a high price? However, he also told them the Han tribe's caravan had only left the day before yesterday. If they left now, they should be able to catch up. The elder was a bit disappointed to hear this, but hope quickly rekindled. He thought it would be better to buy carts directly from the Han tribe. Perhaps there would be unexpected gains. So he asked for the direction the Han tribe's caravan had left in, and then chased after them without stopping. Yufu's caravan stopped and set up camp as usual to cook. But the new tribe's elder couldn't afford to rest. Taking 20 people, each with 2 horses, they pursued through the night under the moonlight. At dawn, they finally discovered the Han tribe caravan's wheel tracks. They followed the wheel tracks for an hour, and finally saw the Han tribe's convoy. Yofu noticed someone was pursuing them, and immediately sent members of the Ing clan to scout the situation. At the same time, he ordered the cavalry to mount and be on alert. The members returned to report that no one else was found nearby, only the 20-odd people behind them. After the new tribe's people arrived, the elder stepped forward and said, "Friends of the Han tribe, we would like to buy a few of your carts. What do we need to trade for them?" Yofu sneered, "You want carts? Do you think I would sell them to you? We are certainly not friends." The elder saw that Yofu was hostile towards him, so he calmly picked up a bamboo tube hanging around his horse's neck and threw it towards Yofu. "Inside it are grain seeds. As long as you agree to trade vehicles with us, I will give you many kinds of seeds. Among them is a yellow yam. In this season, it only takes 3 lunar cycles to mature. The yield is also very high. The stalks can also be used to feed cattle, horses, and sheep, and can also be used as firewood." Yofu recognized them as seeds at a glance. Although he really wanted them in his heart, he still pretended to be indifferent, and casually hung the bamboo tube on his saddle. The elder saw through his thoughts, and promised that as long as Yofu agreed to the trade, the new tribe will provide enough seeds so that the Han tribe can eat these grains within a year. Yofu was tempted. His face flushed red, and he didn't know what to do. Just then, a communicator from the Ing clan ran over, quietly reporting that their scout Ing had found the new tribe's main force not far away. As soon as Yofu heard this, he immediately had an idea. He looked at the elder and said triumphantly, "Our scout Ing has already found your main force. Why should I exchange carts with you? Wouldn't it be more cost-effective to just seize them directly? Everything you brought belongs to me." The elder's face turned pale with fright upon hearing this. He hadn't expected this fellow to be so unscrupulous. But looking at the enemy warrior's excellent equipment, he understood in his heart that if a fight broke out, even if the new tribe won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. So he hastily ordered the team to retreat. But as soon as he finished shouting, Yofu decisively ordered an attack. 76 heavy cavalry, like arrows released from a bow, instantly charged forth. They quickly formed a horizontal line, charging fiercely towards the new tribe's caravan. The new tribe's members were already prepared, and all shot arrows in attack. However, these arrows, when shot at the Han tribe's heavy cavalry armor, caused no damage whatsoever. The distance between the two sides grew shorter and shorter. The cavalrymen firmly held their long blades horizontally with both hands, charging into the enemy formation without hesitation. Everyone only felt their long blades constantly being obstructed. When they charged through and looked back, the sight before them stunned them. The enemy formation was a scene of bloody carnage. The enemies were either dead or maimed. Everywhere lay broken limbs and severed weapon handles. Blood stained the grassland red. Yofu and the others were all shaken by the scene of the battlefield before them, too stunned to speak. Elder Shang and the others were even more terrified, scared out of their wits. But Yofu quickly regained his composure. He ordered the cavalrymen to surround Elder Shang and the others. He said to the elder, "Old man, remember what I told you. If you can't make the decision, then tell these words exactly as they are to your superiors. Take your people and quickly get out of here. I'll take your seeds and livestock. Consider it compensation for you snatching business from the Han tribe." Elder Zhang was pulled away by a minor leader, fleeing in a sorry state. Yofu and Lin Feng stood in place, filled with emotion. They both felt that the long blades and cavalry tactics created by their leader were truly formidable. Yofu then ordered the warriors to clean up the battlefield. They butchered the dead horses for meat. They buried the dead. Then they gathered all the cattle, horses, and sheep together. Next, he carefully inspected the captured supplies. In this battle, they captured 321 horses, 47 cattle, 528 sheep, 260 baskets of seeds, 120 baskets of sea salt, tens of thousands of bamboo arrow materials, a pile of animal hides, animal horns, and bamboo bowls, as well as 93 bamboo bows and some bamboo arrows, and rare metal products. Yu Fu wrote a detailed letter, putting seed samples and a detailed list of spoils of war into bamboo tubes. He sent them to Yu via flying eagle. He planned to take the captured white salt and the white salt he brought, to exchange them for cattle, horses, and sheep before returning to the tribe. That afternoon, the caravan made cloth bags from woolen cloth. They loaded the seeds into them and transported them onto flatbed carts. They also sent a small team to transport the seeds back first. The next day, a seed convoy consisting of 6 horse-drawn carts embarked on its return journey. A heavy cavalryman, acting as overall commander, was responsible for escorting them. In the convoy, there was also a communicator from the Ying clan and 10 cart drivers. Additionally, they brought 100 pack horses. Yu Fu sternly ordered them. The horses and people can be sacrificed, but the seeds must be safely transported back to the tribe. This concerns the future of the tribe. On this very day, several major events also occurred in Hanyang City. The Han tribe saw the first appearance of windows made from waterproof grease. The first batch of small regular script brush handles and dried, block-shaped pine were soaked. 1,000 pencils were successfully trial-produced. The first batch of black spade goose pagodas was also successfully completed. You returned home holding 50 pencils. Xiao Dai was happily looking at the oiled paper windows of Star Lake. He excitedly told you that with this oiled paper, even if they encountered bad weather, they could close the windows and still sew clothes indoors. You smiled and told him this paper not only allowed him to sew clothes, but could also be used for writing. As you spoke, you sat down at that carefully crafted white-top desk and took out a piece of white paper. With a pencil, he began to draw a glass cover, the blueprint for a kerosene lamp. Now, crystal materials were already available, and the Han tribe was fully capable of making them. The next moment, you again thought of the glowing plants in dreamlike Water Valley. A sudden idea struck you. If these glowing plants were to be planted on the main streets of Hanyang City and made into green belts on both sides, they could glow at night. Wouldn't they become natural streetlights? They could also be made into glowing potted plants, placed indoors to serve as nightlights. This could greatly enhance the happiness of the tribe members. At this thought, you planned to have the Snake Clan go to dreamlike Water Valley to collect saplings and plants. They were familiar with the routes and terrain there, and were skilled at studying plants. This job couldn't be more suitable for them. You were just about to go find the leader of the Snake Clan, when Yofu's flying eagle message arrived. In Rue delivered the letter and bamboo tube. You opened the bamboo tube and saw that it was full of crop seeds. Surprisingly, there was still nature. You were so happy you almost jumped up. You eagerly opened the letter. In the letter, Yu Fu detailed what had happened to the core tribe. The new tribe wanted to exchange seeds for carts, but Yofu did not agree. He also proposed 2 conditions. First, that the new tribe's trading range should retreat southward by a month's journey. Otherwise, they would kill them every time they met. Second, they were to raise the price of white salt to be the same as the Han tribes. It was not allowed to be lower than the Han tribes. Yofu also described the heavy cavalry's combat process and effectiveness. He also mentioned the issue of leather armor's durability. Finally, he said he planned to exchange all the captured goods for cattle, horses, and sheep before returning to the tribe. He had already sent people to escort the seeds on their return journey, asking you to send people to meet them. After reading the letter, you immediately wrote a reply to Yofu. First, you praised his actions. You agreed to send people to meet them, and also allowed them to return later. This reply letter was written on white paper with a brush. After writing it, it was placed in a bamboo tube. After replying to the letter, you immediately sought out the Snake Clan leader and told him about going to dreamlike Water Valley to collect saplings and plants, and the plan to plant them in the city. As soon as the snake leader heard it, he thought it was a good idea. He immediately went to begin preparations, planning to officially depart tomorrow. However, no sooner had the Snake Clan leader left than Shuda rushed in excitedly, saying Yofu's caravan had been attacked. You quickly gestured for him to speak quietly. As he spoke, you took the letter from his hand. The letter stated that the caravan had been attacked the night before last. More than 20 people were injured, and 3 people unfortunately died. Strictly guarded transport vehicles and the livestock army were robbed by bandits. You looked at the letter and couldn't help but murmur softly. The letter, however, said that there was no definite incident last night, It seemed that standardizing specific dates was something that needed to be put on the agenda as soon as possible. He calculated in his mind. According to the flying speed of Azuka, the giant baby, the caravan's attack time should roughly be the night before last. You suddenly remembered Yofu had previously assigned a whole banner of heavy cavalry escort 2 types, so you asked Deshu about the convoy's location. At the same time, you secretly pondered how exactly the enemy knew the caravan's encampment. You couldn't help but suspect that the new tribe was interfering. After all, the javelins used by the enemy were very likely to have come from the new tribe. At this moment, Deshu walked over. He said the convoy escorting the 2 types of goods had been successfully met. They were currently at the Lu tribe. At this moment, they should be on their way back. Only after hearing this did you slightly relax. After all, these 2 types concern the Han tribe's strategic plans for next year to advance into water-scarce regions, especially corn, a high-yield and drought-resistant crop. Its importance goes without saying. Dashu and Shuda were astonished to hear about the caravan being attacked. Both had astonished looks on their faces. Shuda was full of doubts, not understanding why the always cautious caravan would be completely unprepared. You explained that Yufu was very experienced. The camp was set up extremely properly. He used the carts to form a temporary wall. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Dashu then asked, since there were defenses, how could there still be such heavy casualties? You analyzed that the enemy must have been tracking the caravan for a long time. They knew the caravan's situation like the back of their hand. Their objective for this night raid was clear. It was to plunder supplies. Moreover, the enemy targeted the caravan's heavy cavalry. They made careful preparations. They used javelins to deal with them. Although javelins, this weapon, were not convenient for cavalry to use. But the enemy likely employed special warriors to throw them from the side front, specifically to counter the Han tribe's heavy cavalry. After Yofu detected the enemy's attack, he immediately organized the defense. He ordered the 38 civilian cavalry to quickly mount their horses and stand by. At the same time, he had the rest of the caravan members pick up long weapons to fend off the enemy. The enemy cavalry split into 2 teams, holding burning javelins, and charged fiercely. They attempted to burn the caravan's goods and cloth, and plunder the white salt and livestock. Yofu decisively ordered the cavalry to attack. Because cavalry can only exert their greatest advantage when charging. The cavalry charged out like arrows from a bowstring. For a moment, they disrupted the enemy's attack rhythm. However, the enemy was numerous. The disparity in forces between the 2 sides was vast. The Han tribe's heavy cavalry could only intercept from the flanks, trying their best to disrupt the enemy's formation. Even so, quite a few enemies still broke through the defense line and charged towards the camp. Narasong was one of them. He came from the Snow Plains wolf tribe. They were incited by the old man who sold bamboo to come and rob the caravan. The old man claimed the caravan was carrying a large amount of white salt and magical vehicles. As long as they seized the goods, he only wanted 1 vehicle and a set of weapons. He also revealed the caravan's location to them. Narasong originally thought this would be an easy robbery. But upon arriving at the scene, he discovered that the barricade formed by the caravan's vehicles was too sturdy. As soon as the battle began, Narasong charged forward with his tribesmen. He saw a small squad riding black horses, cloaked in black armor, with faces like golden devil warriors, charging swiftly. The weapons in the hands of these warriors were incredibly sharp. Wherever they went, both men and horses were easily cut in half. Narasong watched helplessly as the head of his comrade in front of him instantly flew off. Frightened, he instinctively recoiled his neck. Immediately afterwards, his scalp felt a chill. A patch of his hair had already been sliced off. Immediately after, several more devil warriors charged over. He was so scared he lay prone on his horse's back, not daring to look up. As a result, he was still wounded by the long blade of the last warrior. But Yofu had already arranged archers to hide on both sides of the cart barricade. When the enemy charged to within 100 or 200 meters, the archers suddenly fired their arrows. The Snow Plains wolf cavalry had finally broken through the resistance of the heavy cavalry. Just as they were about to charge up to the caravan, they were shot down in droves by this sudden volley of arrows. The enemy javelin unit, seeing this, hastily threw out burning long spears. Instantly, several vehicles loaded with animal hides and wool caught fire. Most of the enemy's forces quickly infiltrated the camp between the camp and the livestock herd, busy driving away the livestock. They left only a small force to set fires and tie down the camp. Youfu instantly understood the enemy's intention. He quickly had the archers aim at the obstructing enemies, attempting to reclaim the herd. But just as his forces were stretched thin, the cavalry returned. The mount of the original leading cavalry commander unfortunately died in battle. Leading the team now was Wuyun. Wuyun led the cavalry to bypass the herd's periphery. They successfully herded back the scattered cattle, horses, and sheep. However, the enemy still stole a good number of livestock. After the enemies harassing the camp seized the white rocks, they quickly fled. Although Youfu and his men intercepted and killed some enemies still managed to escape. After the battlefield was a mess. The ground was covered with corpses and wounded. The cavalrymen were busy searching for the scattered cattle, horses, and sheep. Lu Fuse led the caravan in a full effort to treat the wounded, rescuing supplies and vehicles. Fortunately, the vehicles were not stolen. The amount of stolen white rocks was also not large. The greatest loss was the burned supplies. Cavalrymen and caravan members were injured. Heavy cavalry, due to prolonged combat, suffered immense physical exhaustion. Many of the wounded were injured when their stamina failed. The caravan members had no armor or long blades. They could only rely on vehicles for cover. Many were wounded by swordsmen and javelins. Among them, 3 people pierced by javelins died on the spot. The Han tribe suffered significant losses this time. However, the enemy didn't gain much advantage either. The Snowfield Wolf tribe left behind hundreds of corpses and wounded. Most of what they looted were sheep, cattle, and horses. The quantity was relatively small. Youfu was unwilling to accept this. He wanted to lead his team to take revenge and reclaim the livestock. So he wrote a letter to you seeking your opinion. You turned to ask for the views of Dashu and Shuda. Dashu believed Youfu should first lead the caravan back. After all, the caravan was already short-handed. And they were carrying wounded. The cavalry now only had over 30 men left. Continuing to fight would be extremely disadvantageous for them. Shuda initially agreed with Dashu's view. But soon after, he clamored to lead troops into battle, to establish the Han tribe's foundation. You retorted, asking where his soldiers were. Only then did Shuda recall that all the soldiers under his command had already been dispatched. Now he was a commander without troops. But he still didn't give up. He was still thinking of gathering tribesmen to attack the enemy. You refused without hesitation. You had Dashu explain the reasons to Shuda. Dashu explained that it was already snowing in July. The rice was about to be harvested. After that, another crop needed to be planted. Before winter arrived, they still needed to stock up on fodder and firewood, build houses for the newly joined tribesmen, ensure sufficient supplies for winter. Currently, there were simply no available hands for war. You further analyzed to the 2 of them. The Han tribe's development speed was too fast. Its foundation was not yet stable. What they lacked most right now was time. When Hanyang City's construction was completed next year, and the new city had also stabilized, they would then be able to free up their hands to deal with other matters. Although they couldn't spare manpower for an expedition right now, their defenses were more than sufficient. The newly joined tribesmen would surely fight with all their might to protect their homeland. Moreover, no one would be foolish enough to, at this juncture, attack the new city. You continued, we cannot just swallow this insult. Revenge is inevitable, but now is not suitable for mobilizing a large amount of manpower. We can only rely on Youfu and his men themselves, and there must be no significant casualties. You 2 come up with some ideas. Let's see what we should do. Dashu suggested, we can find those on the prairie who have had dealings with the Han tribe who are powerful in tribes that abide by rules. Use white rocks to recruit warriors. Have them help guard the wounded and supplies. Then dispatch heavy cavalry to raid the enemy, with the aim of inflicting casualties on the enemy's effective forces, to strike fear into the enemy's hearts. You thought this idea was feasible, but you also pointed out the risks involved. The recruited helpers must be reliable. Otherwise, the wounded team might be wiped out by them instead. You stated your own plan. Have Youfu go find helpers. The wounded team remains in place to rest, waiting for the cavalrymen to return to the team. The cavalrymen cut off the heads of the dead enemies. The cavalrymen cut off the heads of the dead enemies. Marinate well with salt. Send quickly to the enemy by fast horse. And attach a diplomatic state letter. Then send a flag inscribed with those who violate the might of Han. shall be punished, no matter how far. The state letter declared that the enemy had encroached upon the Han merchant caravan. They must either apologize and make amends, or willingly submit. Otherwise, they should await the 100,000 iron cavalry of the Han Empire to flatten them. In addition, make 2 more flags. One of them to be planted atop a golden crown. The so-called golden crown is to pile up enemy corpses and cover them with earth to form a mound. This will display our strength. Xu De looked puzzled. He muttered, "Isn't this lying? Our Han tribe doesn't have 100,000 iron cavalry." You explained it's precisely to deceive them, to make the enemy fearful, to let them know they've provoked someone they shouldn't have. De Shu said worriedly, "What if the enemy can't understand Han characters? And we're not sure if they will compensate." You replied, "If they can't understand, we can have warriors read it to them. The key is to first present a formidable front to the enemy. Let them clearly understand the gap between them and the Han tribe. As for compensation, it's actually not important. What's important is to intimidate the enemy. If the enemy is scared, they might seek out the new tribe for a solution. That's exactly what I want to see." De Shu and Xu De suddenly understood. De Shu immediately went to prepare fabric for making the flags. You meanwhile set about writing the letter. Afterwards, you went to inspect the papermaking production line. You found that currently, relying on human power for Dongli, although it runs stably, it truly wastes manpower. However, compared to ancient methods, papermaking has made tremendous progress. The advantage in output is very clear. The new city's rice fields saw a bountiful harvest. The newly joined tribesmen were all beaming with joy. Even the Lin tribe rushed to help with the harvest. And to learn planting techniques. You stood on the city wall, pondering the construction of a heavy metal smelting plant in the swamp. You planned to have the Lin tribe help select long paper. Just at this moment, news arrived of the Lu tribe and the escort team for grain and seeds returning. This batch of seeds arrived extremely timely. After the new city's rice harvest, if rice or wheat were planted before winter, they wouldn't have enough time to mature. Only corn, with a growth cycle of just 3 months, might still allow for another season of planting. You made a swift decision, deciding to first take out 1/4 of the corn seeds for planting, to mitigate risks. While he arranged for tribesmen to harvest rice, he also allocated manpower for corn seedling cultivation. Corn can either be directly sown in large fields, or seedlings can be cultivated first and then transplanted. Seedling cultivation can increase germination rates and save seeds for the tribe. The leaders stood by, watching you demonstrate planting corn. They began to discuss animatedly. Some noticed the large size of the corn, and were curious about its yield and taste. Others believed that no matter what, its characteristic of ripening in 3 months alone made it worth trying. You patiently explained to them that corn not only tasted good, but was also particularly filling. It could be used to make porridge, ground into flour for cakes, and with added filling and wheat flour, steamed buns could also be made. Corn stalks are thick and sturdy. A single stalk can grow over a dozen large leaves. Typically, 2 to 3 corn cobs will grow in the middle. However, to ensure yield, usually only 1 or 2 in the middle are kept. The rest must be broken off. Corn yield is no lower than that of rice. The group leaders were overjoyed upon hearing this. They all cheered, "Long live the chief! Long live the Han tribe!" You believed it was necessary to establish a festival to celebrate the harvest, to unite the people. People love participating in collective activities, which helps strengthen the tribe's cohesion. Before various tribes joined the Han tribe, there were many sacrificial activities. After joining, such activities became rare. Establishing a festival could not only give the tribesmen a sense of honor, but also attract those who were still hesitant to join. After discussing with the group leaders, you decided to hold a celebration after the corn cultivation was completed, naming it Labor Day. For now, no fixed date would be set. It would be held annually and transformed into an award ceremony to select labor models, granting them honor and material rewards, to make the tribesmen understand that hard work could earn honor and rewards. Everyone immediately began preparing for the Labor Day festivities. Each clan would nominate at least 1 labor model. Currently, there are at least 5 clans. The clan chiefs would agree, and then you would review them. The selection of labor models must be strict and command public respect. Otherwise, it would only be counterproductive. The new city was bustling with activity. The corn seedlings had emerged. After the rice field stalks were burned, the land was tilled, preparing to plant corn. You allocated supplies from Hanyang City as rewards for the celebration. On the other side, Yofu received your plan and strongly agreed with it. He first found Suritu and hired 60 warriors to protect the caravan. Then, in front of these people, he cut off the heads of the enemy fallen warriors and preserved them with salt. Next, he assembled the cavalry and had the uninjured caravan members don warrior armor to go together to collect the debt. The remaining caravan members and hired warriors were responsible for piling up the trophy pile of heads. They felt this was very satisfying, believing the trophy pile could deter the enemy. The Han tribe's Azuka giant eagles scouted from the sky, guiding Yofu's cavalry squads. After 3 days of pursuit, they finally caught up with the enemy before they returned to their homeland. When the Snowfield Wolf warriors previously robbed the Han caravan, they hadn't expected the caravan to be so formidable. The weapons of those Black Forest warriors were incredibly powerful, causing them heavy losses. Yofu led the cavalry squads, holding high a banner proclaiming, "Those who violate the mighty Han shall be punished, no matter how far," and under the afterglow of the setting sun, intercepted the Snowfield Wolf tribe. Tunger, the leader of the Snowfield Wolves, stepped forward. Yofu handed him a banner, saying, "Remember the words written on it. The Han tribe will not let you off." Immediately after, Han tribe warriors threw bags containing enemy heads onto the ground. Tunger saw that the bags contained the foreheads of his own tribesmen and was instantly horrified. Yofu took out a diplomatic letter and read it to Tunger. The letter stated, "The Snowfield Wolf tribe has infringed upon the Han caravan and must compensate with 200 able-bodied laborers, 200 cattle, 1,000 fine horses, 5,000 sheep, 10,000 animal hides from cattle and sheep, and 500 pairs of ox horns. Furthermore, these must be delivered by next spring. Otherwise, prepare for the Han tribe's army to raze them to the ground." Tunger's face showed a troubled expression, stating that the compensation amount was too large. Cannot make decisions on their own. Must return to inform their leader. Yofu handed him the state letter. He said to deliver the message. By the time the ice and snow melt next, if no compensation is seen at the battlefield of a few days ago, the Han tribe's army will surely dispatch troops. Yofu arrived right at the place where the attack occurred, the place where the caravan was. There were golden crowns and large banners. "We will wait there for a month. If no compensation is seen by then, what will come will be an army. Don't even think about moving away to hide. The Han tribe's giant infant can find you." Tunger wanted to leave with his team. Yofu, however, demanded they leave the sheep and half the horses. As advance compensation, Tunger tried to bargain. Yofu suddenly drew his sword, frightening Tunger, who trembled. In the end, he surrendered helplessly. He said, "I am willing to follow the Han tribe. I really don't want to go back and be punished by the chief." Yofu impatiently urged, "Leave the sheep and horses. Take your people and quickly return to deliver the message." Tunger could only take his subordinates. After leaving the sheep and 150 horses, he departed in a hurry. Yofu received the livestock and returned to the camp with his team. Afterwards, he once again set out on his return journey. He sold what he could of the remaining goods and brought back what couldn't be sold. He wrote a letter to you, reporting on the negotiation outcome. A day later, you received Yofu's letter. At the same time, there was another good piece of news. Yu Yi finally located the cannibals' dwelling place. It was located on a snow-covered mountain. It was when you received Yu Ye's letter reporting his return. Along with it came a simple map. The content marked on the map immediately piqued your interest. You judged that it might be a sulfur spring. Although it's still unclear what the spring is for, you still made a note of it first. The map showed, to the north was a vast, continuous range of snow-capped mountains. The peak of one of the snow mountains was flat, very likely a volcano. The cannibals were not on the snow mountain, but at the foot of the snow mountain range to the south, approximately 2 or 3 days' journey from the mountain range. Their dwellings were very scattered, distributed in tribal forms across the vast foothills. They looked more like small villages. The styles of houses in these villages were diverse. There were tents made of animal skins. Some were built with branches and vegetation. Some were grass huts. Others were excavated underground caves. And some were built in trees like bird nests. Despite this, Yu Yi still determined that they all belonged to the same cannibal tribe, because they all possessed similar human bones, and most male tribesmen had white totem patterns painted on their bodies, similar to the totems of the cannibals who previously attacked the Han tribe. The warriors were extremely similar. Yu speculated that these villages might have been built by captives taken by the cannibals. After all, if they were native-born locals, the house styles should be relatively uniform. But now they were so diverse, it was highly probable that the captives retained their living habits from before being captured. When building their new homes, they continued their original styles. However, within this, there still existed some critical issues that urgently needed to be resolved. For example, the giant apes. What role did they play among the cannibals? Why did Yu Yi and his team not see any red-haired giant apes in these villages? This relates to the enemy's overall organizational structure. If it's not clear, it will be difficult to know oneself and one's enemy. Additionally, the cannibals primarily relied on hunting, supplemented by a small amount of animal breeding. Cannibalism, on the other hand, served as a punishment, a form of entertainment or sacrifice. Their hunting methods were diverse, including coordinated group hunts, using projectiles, throwing spears and traps, and siege warfare, which they only learned in the last year or two. Currently, the Han tribe and the cannibals. The standoff situation was becoming increasingly tense. Population size became a key factor in measuring the strength of both sides. This was also the issue you were most concerned about. For this, Yu Yi led a reconnaissance team enduring hardships, penetrating deep into enemy territory multiple times. They discovered that, at the foot of the continuous snow mountains, the cannibal villages were densely distributed. From east to west, there are hundreds of tribes. The population of each village exceeds 200 or 300 people. Based on this estimation, the total population of the cannibals is at least tens of thousands. The development speed of the cannibals is far less than that of the Han tribe's population. It is through tens of thousands of years of natural reproduction, partly through the survival of migrating tribesmen, and partly by capturing people from other tribes, that their population has gradually accumulated. As for the number of adult male cannibals, it is currently difficult to estimate precisely. Can only be roughly estimated to be around 7,000 or 8,000. But this is merely a conjecture based on limited information. During this reconnaissance mission, Yu and his team did not discover the terrifying Hongmao giant apes. This, on the contrary, filled your heart with worry. In your opinion, if the cannibals only had tens of thousands of ordinary people, the Han tribe would not be afraid. But once thousands of giants join them, the situation would become extremely tricky. Although judging by the past patterns of the giant apes' movements, their numbers might not be large. After all, there is no conclusive evidence. Everything is just speculation. Shuda asked, filled with worry. Will the cannibals go capturing people again? Your expression was solemn, and you seriously replied, this must be guarded against. We still know very little about the enemy's patterns of activity. The first encounter with the cannibals was in autumn. They attacked several tribes. The second time was in spring. The location was the Black Rat tribe. The third time was in late spring during that raid. The enemy deployed the largest number of people. Except for winter, they are active almost all year round. The time of their next attack is completely unpredictable. Based on this situation, you decisively decided to increase the intensity of daily patrols. We must absolutely not wait until the enemy is at our gates. Before we become aware, Dashu suggested, following the patrol methods used in Hanyang City, let's deploy our forces. First, cleverly set up traps in the mountain forests. Then, dispatch a hunting patrol team of about 10 people, riding swift horses to patrol. This way, we can effectively guard against sudden enemy attacks, and also hunt prey during patrols. Increase the tribe's meat reserves. Increasing the tribe's meat reserves. At the same time, it can also reduce the mountain beast's threat to the tribe. You expressed agreement with this proposal. Immediately, Yu arranged for Dashu and Shuda to be responsible for establishing the patrol team. They were to select experienced hunters from the city, with 10 people forming one team, and each person equipped with a fine horse. Initially, 3 teams would be formed. The patrol area would mainly focus on the north, extending east to the edge of the swamp, north to the Babeo mountain mining area, and to the west, a distance of at least half a day's travel. Patrol members must return promptly by noon. You also specifically emphasized that after the Labor Day celebration, this work would immediately commence. Dashu would be responsible for selecting personnel, and Shuda would undertake the tasks of training and equipment provision. Afterwards, Dashu asked you about Yui. How should that team of people be arranged? Should they return? You initially did consider letting them return. After all, they had been traveling outside for several months, and during this time they had paid the heavy price of losing team members. Being able to find the enemy's dwelling place was already quite difficult. However, the useful intelligence gathered was too little. But a moment later, you had a sudden idea. You said to Dashu, have them try to capture a few prisoners and bring them back. From the prisoners, interrogate them about the situation of the giant apes, and the relationship between the cannibals and the giant apes. Shuda showed a worried expression after hearing this. He quickly said, this is too dangerous. The enemy has elephants. Even if Yui and his men are on horseback, they might not be able to escape safely. You pondered for a moment before replying, if there's an opportunity, act. If there's no opportunity, retreat quickly. Additionally, have them return along the riverbank. And while they're at it, scout the waterway to see if troops can be transported northward by water. After these matters were arranged, he also inquired about the preparations for the Labor Day celebration. Shuda replied, full of confidence, that everything had been properly arranged. Those responsible for the preparations were reliable veteran warriors. Not long after, the Han tribe welcomed its significant first Labor Day celebration. This was another large-scale collective event held by the tribe, following the grand sacrifice at the beginning of the year. The residents of the new city, most of whom were witnessing such a grand occasion for the first time, when they heard that labor models would be selected and given generous rewards, everyone was filled with curiosity. Almost everyone turned out. Even the laborers who had not yet joined the tribe were allowed to come and join the fun, and could even receive free food. In mid-August, just after the rice harvest was completed, and the cornfields were also finished, the Labor Day celebration was held as scheduled amidst everyone's anticipation. As dawn broke, the tribesmen arrived early at the square to gather. Their gazes turned towards the high platform, built from wooden planks. It was said that the chief would present awards to the labor models there. Moreover, everyone did not need to work today. After the celebration, there would also be exciting games and competitions. Participants would all have a chance to win small prizes. Tribesmen who learned to queue could even receive footballs, rabbits, or black-bone chickens. Amidst the stirring sound of gongs and drums, you led the group leaders onto the high platform. Immediately, enthusiastic cheers erupted from below the stage. You delivered an impassioned speech. The Han tribe has provided excellent conditions for everyone's development, and the abundant achievements we have made today are inseparable from the hard work of every tribesman. This celebration is to celebrate everyone's efforts and achievements. As soon as your voice fell, the crowd below the stage cheered excitedly, with slogans rising and falling. Immediately after, you announced the selection of labor models. These labor models were diligent in their work, examples who worked hard and made great contributions to the tribe. They deserved appropriate rewards. Then you invited Lord Xianxia to read out the list of winners and their deeds. The first labor model to receive an award was Xuelei, the leader of the housing construction team. Xuelei had not been with the Han tribe for long, but his serious attitude when learning construction techniques made him the first among the new tribesmen to master the relevant skills. Under his leadership, the team's housing construction speed was extremely fast, building a total of 30 residences, successfully solving the housing problems of many people. At the same time, he unreservedly shared his skills with other members of the team, Lei received the first generation of weaving, looms and many other practical rewards, and all these prizes became his personal property. Lei was incredibly excited. He recalled his experience of being sold to the Han tribe over a year ago, and said emotionally, "I never regretted coming here. The conditions in the Han tribe are much better than I imagined. I have always loved building houses. I diligently learned the techniques when I was in Hanyang City. After the construction of the new city began, I actively participated. Now my efforts have been recognized. I will definitely work even harder in the future." After Lei, other labor models were successively selected from various fields. There were those skilled at helping antelopes give birth, those with superb farming techniques, as well as blacksmiths, kiln workers, carpenters, and so on. The distribution of prizes was tailored to different professions. For example, textile equipment, most of which was discarded from Hanyang City, but for these awardees, it was still very precious. After the award ceremony, other rich and colorful activities unfolded in sequence. There were intense and exciting labor competitions, assessments testing knowledge of the bloodline tribe's common cards, and vibrant football matches. Tribesmen who passed the qualification assessment could receive 2 rabbits. Therefore, many people were queuing and waiting, and those who didn't want to queue, then they chose to participate in game competitions. Competition events included chopping wood, carrying water, and so on. The top 3 in each group received corresponding rewards. Prizes included chicks, bunnies, small tools, and similar items. The football field outside the city was also bustling with activity. The entire event lasted until evening. The tribe specially prepared 500 antelopes, meticulously roasting them for everyone to enjoy at a communal meal. As the Han tribe had a large number of antelopes, slaughtering these 500 aging antelopes not only allowed the tribesmen to feast, but also reduced the pressure of raising them. However, the Han tribe had fewer pigs, and was currently in a critical period of expanding their population. Furthermore, they had not yet mastered castration techniques, so pigs were temporarily kept safe. The next day, you brought a large amount of supplies to Hanyang City. These were mainly for teaching, and white paper for writing textbooks. At this time, you had an even grander plan in mind. You urgently hoped to quickly cultivate a group of excellent teachers and officials to begin forming a new government. The first step was to conduct a population census. Additionally, with the continuous development of private ownership, designing currency also became an urgent task. Upon returning to Hanyang City, you immediately went without delay to inspect the construction of the teaching building and the office building. The teaching building was already completed, and its appearance was very beautiful. The office building, however, was still in the foundation-laying stage. Originally, you planned to install glass doors and windows in the teaching building, but after cost calculation, it was found to be too expensive. So it was decided to use paper instead. However, you thought of using crystal to make magnifying glasses. These would be used for making coin molds and carving movable-type printing plates. This would be crucial for subsequent work and play a vital role. Therefore, you immediately arranged for personnel to make convex lens molds and put In Rue and the Snake Clan chief in charge of completing the window paper installation before the end of August. Afterward, you began to deeply consider the issue of a monetary system. After analysis, you believed that the Han tribe was suitable for minting currency from brass and silver. However, if a silver standard was adopted, it might face issues of private free minting and foreign currency exchange. These could all disrupt the tribe's economic order. Therefore, you decisively stipulated that transactions within the tribe must use Han tribe minted currency, while foreign trade would primarily be barter, supplemented by currency transactions. Furthermore, currency transactions must also use Han tribe currency. Regarding the currency exchange system, you drew inspiration from the Yuan Jiao Fun system and prohibited changing it to Yuan Jiao 1. Small denomination copper coins would be minted from bronze alloy, and silver dollars would be minted from pure silver. To prevent imitation by new tribes, a solid coin design was adopted, and a stamping manufacturing process was used to ensure the currency's anti-counterfeiting properties. After the coin minting plan was finalized, relevant personnel immediately began intensive preparations for the stamping equipment. A few days after returning to Hanyang City, the window paper was successfully installed. The doors and windows of the teaching building were also completely decorated. At this time, you began to teach students from Xianxia and Hanyang City. You divided the students into 4 classes. In the morning, you taught Chinese language, and in the afternoon, you taught mathematics. In Chinese language teaching, the plan was to start with commonly used Chinese characters, following an order from easy to difficult, using a teaching method of learning 1 thing and understanding 3, to help students quickly grasp Chinese character knowledge. The afternoon mathematics class started with the most basic addition and subtraction of numbers, gradually progressing to mixed operations of multiplication and division. At the same time, you personally compiled textbooks. When selecting ancient poems, special attention was paid to avoiding historical elements, to suit the actual situation of the tribe. Just then, Big Mouth successfully made the molds. After careful inspection, you were very satisfied. You let the trainees link themselves, and instructed them to listen tomorrow. Write each misspelled character 100 times. Afterwards, you began to discuss with Big Mouth the precautions for casting metal with metal molds. When casting metal with metal molds, you must separate them with clay, and be sure to dry the clay, otherwise it will severely affect the quality of the finished product. Next, you asked Big Mouth about the training of apprentices, and informed him that new smelting and processing plants might be built. You should keep an eye out in advance, and select suitable candidates. This time, the mold is used to make glass. Glass is actually just reshaping crystal after melting it. True glass uses other materials like mengxiaozi. It's just that I haven't found suitable raw materials yet. Big Mouth took the crystal with a face full of surprise. Seeing this, you patiently explained, "This is a crystal frame, can be made into glass, but not through refining, but by changing its shape. Because we haven't found the raw materials for true glass yet, so we can only supplement with oil paper now." Big Mouth said, feeling a bit pained. "Smashing such beautiful crystal is truly a pity." You smiled and replied, "Making it into a tool will be more useful. Once we mine more crystal in the future, you can keep one." So Big Mouth began to crush and grind the crystal. At this moment, you suddenly thought of water writing. You thought this was a good way to save paper and promote popular education. But who doesn't write? The key formula for the surface coating includes silicon dioxide, waterproof glue, water-locking powder, and quick-drying powder. But you currently only have silicon dioxide. You don't have the other materials. So you could only put this idea aside for now and focus on making convex lenses. You instructed Big Mouth to melt the crystal and add alkali as a catalyst. When the glass liquid softened, you began to preheat the mold, preparing to cast. Because the glass liquid was very viscous, it was only with your assistance that it was successfully poured into the mold. After filling the mold, you clasped the other half of the mold on top and secured it with a stick. Then the apprentices pressed the mold firmly, squeezing out the excess glass liquid. After cooling for a period, you had Big Mouth scrape off the excess glass, and then used a wet cloth to accelerate the cooling of the mold. Finally, opening the mold, the glass lens successfully separated from the mold. There were just some rough edges remaining around it. You carefully tapped off the rough edges, meticulously polished the edges, and then cleaned it. A super large convex lens was finally completed. You had Big Mouth hold out his hand and aimed the magnifying glass at his palm. Big Mouth saw his magnified palm and couldn't help but exclaim, "Seeing this tool, it's too amazing. What else can it be used for?" You smiled and explained, "This is called a magnifying glass. It can make things appear larger, making it easier for us to see small objects. For example, it's very useful when carving molds. Moreover, it can also focus sunlight to start a fire. When we bask in the sun in summer, we feel hot. This shows that sunlight has temperature. A magnifying glass can focus sunlight to a single point, raising the temperature enough to ignite wood." Everyone looked puzzled after hearing this. To make everyone convinced, you led everyone outside to conduct an experiment. It was a hot afternoon, with the sun blazing. You first rubbed charcoal onto the firewood, then aimed the magnifying glass at the sun, carefully adjusting the focal length. As the focal length changed, the light spot gradually became smaller and brighter. When the light spot accurately shone on the firewood, in a short while the firewood began to smoke. An apprentice excitedly shouted. This shout attracted many people, including the Snake Clan chief, Lord Wu, and Elder Han. Everyone gathered around, curiously trying to use the magnifying glass to light wood and roast ants, having a great time. Meanwhile, you walked to a high place and gazed out towards beyond the city. At this time, the rice paddies were already golden yellow. It would soon be autumn. In about another week, this year's second rice harvest could begin. After harvesting the rice, there wouldn't be enough time to plant other grains. But leaving the land idle wasn't an option either. You decided to have the tribesmen plant Xianxia. This qitzao grows like a sunflower, can produce 7 natural materials, useful for both treating wood and making leather armor. And the seeds of the 7-herb plant are like black beans. People can eat them and extract oil. The leftover bean dregs after oil extraction can be used as premium feed. You plan to use this 7-bean vegetable oil to make huaxi, printing ink. Oil-based ink has strong adhesion, suitable for smooth carriers like teowozi. Just then, you saw Dashu leading a woman walking towards you. She looked like a leader. Several high-ranking members from other tribes followed behind. When they got closer, you recognized her as Xianxia, the female leader of the Sang tribe. You then led the group into Hanyang City. As soon as everyone saw the sturdy, thick drawbridge, the vermilion-painted solid wood gate and the towering city tower, they were all astonished. Hanyang City was much grander than Xinxia, new city. They immediately expressed their desire to bring their people and stay there. You heard this and did not conceal anything. Hanyang City no longer had any spare land. Jianzhuzhen heard this. Xianxia felt a bit disappointed. She had no choice but to abandon this idea in her heart. Next, you drew a sketch on the blackboard. A sketch of the terrain around Hanyang City. Asked him if he knew of any other insects similar to silkworms. Xianxia thought for a moment. Pointing to the vegetation, she said, "A day's walk south from the river east of Hanyang City, there was a chestnut forest. There was a type of chestnut worm that fed on winged chestnut tree leaves. Its size was similar to silkworms, and could also spin silk and form cocoons." This answer made you very excited. You immediately stated your upcoming plan. You planned to build a city near the chestnut forest. A new city even larger than Hanyang City, named Ruyang Commandery. You wanted the Sang clan to move there, primarily responsible for the new city's construction, as well as the collection of litzan and breeding experiments. These were exactly what the Sang tribe members were good at, so Xianxia readily agreed to your arrangements. The next day, Shuda led 20 male tribesmen and 50 members of the Sang clan, carrying 2 ox carts and several horses, left the city early to collect litzan cocoons. Because they were a working party, the group only brought some long tools. There are also a small number of long-haired creatures, as well as rat-sized steel paths. Because the ox cart team was moving very slowly, most of the time was spent clearing the path. In the Li tribe, their original dwelling place had been occupied by the Yu tribe. 400 to 500 people in the abandoned dwelling place built new residences. The houses were tents made of branches. Smear a layer of mud outside. Moreover, they have already learned to cultivate desires and so on. This morning, the Yu tribe hunting team smelled the aroma of Shuda and his group cooking. The small leader leading the team quietly approached with his tribesmen, thinking that if the other party had Xianxia, they could trade for some. As a result, it was discovered by the Han tribe and brought to their attention. Shuda and the others immediately grabbed their weapons and became alert. Fortunately, there was no direct conflict after the two sides met. Shuda said he was from the Han tribe across the river. This time they came to collect fruits. The small leader said that forest belonged to them. To collect fruits, they would need to use Xianxia or other exchanges. Upon hearing this, Shuda rolled his eyes, immediately said it was no problem. His tribe not only had Baiyan, but also various containers and food. But they must talk to the leader in person. The small leader naturally agreed with pleasure. You see, in the past 6 months since they moved, they hadn't encountered any tribe with Xianxia. During this time, the leader was worrying about this matter. Soon, under the leadership of the small leader, the group finally met Yutu, the leader of the Yu tribe. When he saw the people of the Han tribe, all riding four-horned beasts, he was so shocked he almost bit his tongue. Shuda dismounted, walked to Yutu's side and greeted him, and reiterated their purpose for coming. At this moment, Yutu had not yet recovered from the shock. Looking at the other party's attire, he knew the other party must be a large tribe. So he also stated his conditions. The fruits of the chestnut forest. Shuda could harvest them once a year and take as much as they could carry. But the Han tribe had to exchange for them with a year's worth of white salt. From the Yu tribe, upon hearing of the salt, Shuda immediately frowned. I cannot agree to such terms. After all, this forest wasn't yours before. So, to exchange for white salt, you would also need to exchange other things. Or you could exchange with labor. Yutu was completely confused by these words. How do we exchange with labor? Seeing that the other party had taken the bait, Shuda revealed a barely perceptible smile. This is very simple. We currently need many people to work. You just need to send enough tribesmen to help us with labor. Every day we can give you some food or containers. Upon hearing this, Yutu immediately became excited. What primitive people lacked least was strength. This method was no different from getting it for free. So, how many people do you need? And what kind of work will they be doing? I cannot tell you these things yet. After all, you have many tribesmen, and the white salt needed for one day would be too much. How about this? After our leader completes his task, then you can come with us to the Han tribe, to meet our leader, to show his sincerity. Shuda also had his tribesmen bring out a small half-bag of white salt and curiosities as gifts. Yutu had never seen such things before. The white salt and curiosities were as white as snow, and one look told him they were good things. So he immediately agreed to Shuda's proposal, and enthusiastically invited him to set up camp near the tribe. Shuda, hearing the other party invite him, immediately seized the opportunity. After all, the task his leader had given him was to select a new city site, and the suitable location, as he recalled, was near the Li tribe. If he couldn't go there, then he wouldn't be able to complete the mission at all. After arriving at the camp, Shuda ordered his men to unload everything from the carts. Then he sent out half of his warriors to escort Xianxia and others to look for silkworm cocoons. He, himself, took the remaining few tribesmen and began surveying the terrain. The people of the Yu tribe soon noticed their unusual activities. They saw one person riding a horse, running back and forth, then planting flags on the ground to make markers. Others were holding pens and drawing on paper, but they didn't affect their own tribesmen, so the Yu tribe didn't bother to interfere. However, it was different for Xianxia's group. When the group entered the chestnut forest, they were pulling two large carts. The Yu tribe thought the other party intended to harvest all the chestnuts at once. So Yutu quickly sent out tribesmen from his tribe to rush and harvest chestnuts, trying to harvest more before Xianxia and his group. However, Yutu soon realized something was wrong. Xianxia and his group didn't pick a single chestnut. Instead, they were searching everywhere in the forest for a kind of insect, and also some silkworm cocoons, and they truly found quite a lot. In just one afternoon, they filled a whole basket. Seeing this, Xianxia was also very happy. With these silkworm cocoons, the Sang tribe finally gained a firm foothold in the Han tribe. They no longer had to worry about being arbitrarily assigned due to lack of contributions. Just like that, 3 days quickly passed. The 6 large baskets they brought were all full, and all had undergone initial processing. Shuda's surveying work was also completely finished. Now it was time to go back and report. The returning team had 11 more people. Those were Yutu and his 10 warrior guards. The group traveled through the night. By the afternoon of the next day, they heard the sound of a river. Along the way, Yutu noticed something strange. One cart track on the ground pointed towards the opposite bank of the river, which was naturally the direction of the Han tribe, and another track led to a different direction, east of the river. He immediately asked, Captain Shu, on the east side of the river, do you still go to even more distant places? Shuda also didn't hide it, this was natural. Our Han tribe has more people than you can imagine. One settlement simply can't hold them all. So besides Hanyang City, we have other settlements. Hearing this, Yutu couldn't help but be secretly alarmed. He had once thought the Han tribe was a large tribe, but he never imagined it would be this large. Soon, the team arrived at the bank of the small river. Just as Yutu was still worrying about how these wooden carts would cross the river, the group drove their carts steadily across the wooden bridge to the other side. Still, before he could ask what that thing spanning the river was, he was immediately shocked by the sight before him. Those tall stone walls, they definitely didn't look naturally formed. And those neat grasslands outside the stone walls, and that huge rotating water wheel by the river. Shuda looked at Yutu's unworldly expression, and couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. But on the surface he still enthusiastically invited Yutu into the city. From the moment Yutu stepped through the city gate, his mouth had not closed. The scene before him was something he dared not even dream of. The clean blue bricks on the ground, containers neatly stacked everywhere, children playing wildly everywhere. Everyone's face was adorned with a happy smile. It wasn't until you appeared before him that Yutu suddenly snapped out of it. But he seemed to have forgotten the purpose of this trip. He just blankly offered the gifts he had prepared upon arrival. You looked at the basket of familiar yet strange things, and immediately became interested. Picking one up for a closer look, it was taro. Even if you were usually calm and composed, at this moment, you couldn't help but feel a surge of surprise in your heart. You should know this stuff is famously high-yielding. The Han tribe's staple foods are currently corn and rice, two types of crops. Although the yield per mu can reach several hundred jin, and even exceed 1,000 jin if managed well, compared to taro it's a drop in the ocean. This thing can achieve a minimum yield per mu of about 3,000 jin. More than 6,000 jin is also normal. This undoubtedly greatly reduced the pressure of food shortages for the Han tribe. Although your heart was already churning like a stormy sea, you remained very calm on the surface. First, you invited Chief Yutu to sit. Then you proactively brought up the matter of trade. Only then did Yutu remember to ask about the work. About the matter of Huan Yen, the Han tribe doesn't know? What do we need to do to help the Han tribe? What do we need to do? And where is the work done? If it's here, that won't do. It's too far. Hearing this, you revealed a triumphant smile. Naturally, it's building houses, and the place isn't far. It's right near your settlement. Upon hearing this, Yutu froze on the spot. Then he felt a deep sense of fear and unease. Near our settlement? Chief Han, are you planning to annex us? Of course not. If we wanted to annex you, just a portion of my tribesmen would be enough to easily do it. Why go through so much trouble? You've also seen that our tribe has many people, and the number is constantly increasing. The current city simply cannot meet our survival needs. So we need to build a few more cities. When we were choosing the sites, we didn't know you had already moved there. Listening to your explanation, Yutu felt it was somewhat reasonable. But the unease in his heart still hadn't disappeared. Because if two tribes became neighbors, he estimated that, in the future, the animals in the forest, not a single one would be left for the tribe's share. However, he wouldn't have to worry about white rock and containers. Thinking of these things, Yutu immediately fell into a dilemma. For a moment, he didn't know whether he should or shouldn't agree to your trade conditions. If he didn't agree, it was clear he would have to move his tribesmen again. After all, next door was an incredibly powerful tribe. It's uncertain what conflicts might arise later. If they moved, it would be even more out of the question. It's already early autumn. If they were to move at this time, there wouldn't be enough time to store food for winter. You could tell Yutu was conflicted, but didn't rush to persuade him. Wait until tomorrow. Take them to watch the Han tribe harvest beans. Let them taste rice and delicious food, and then let them see what animal husbandry is. Then Yutu surely would be tempted. Following this, Shuda then led the group to visit the carpentry workshop, the construction sites in the city, the weaving workshop, and the Han tribe's breeding farm. After touring these, Yutu and his group were already dumbfounded. All of this had undoubtedly completely overturned their perceptions. They kept repeating one sentence. So it can be done this way. Soon it was time for dinner. The food prepared by the Han tribe was still the same as usual. Besides the staple white rice, There was also delicious meat soup on the table, along with some vegetables and wild fruits. Yutu noticed that all the members of the Han tribe ate with 2 sticks, but he didn't know how to use them at all. This made him feel tormented, seeing a table full of delicacies but unable to put them into his mouth. Fortunately, this thing called chopsticks was still good for scooping rice. Most importantly, this thing called rice was truly fragrant when eaten and quite filling. Shuda proactively introduced to him that this rice was actually the main product of paddy. Tomorrow was the day for harvesting paddy. If Yutu was interested, he could go and see. Yutu immediately nodded and agreed, saying he was certainly interested. We will definitely go tomorrow. The next day at dawn, the members of the Han tribe arrived in the fields. Accompanying them were Yutu's group from the Yu tribe. They personally witnessed the Han tribe harvesting paddy. The entire process, from harvesting to threshing and transport, and drying. Yutu had originally thought that his own tribe also planted taro on a daily basis. He believed that the Yu tribe's planting techniques would certainly not be worse than the Han tribes, but after watching the entire harvesting process, he no longer thought so. All the Han tribe's work was orderly. Everyone had clear divisions of labor. In less than 2 days, the Han tribe had brought too many surprises to Yutu. At this moment, he could no longer suppress the excitement in his heart. He eagerly ran to you and expressed his thoughts. Respected Han leader, I agree to exchange labor for Baiyan. Additionally, I want to go back and discuss with my tribesmen about joining the Han tribe. We also want to live a good life like everyone else, and I hope you won't refuse. That's certainly possible. I await your good news. 2 days later, Shuda led the pioneering team, along with Yutu, and once again arrived near the Yu tribe. The formation of this pioneering team was more experienced than the first time. Those sent out were all skilled technicians, and large quantities of living supplies and construction tools were also sent at a frequency of 4 to 8 times daily to the new outpost, Ruyang Commandery. The first step was naturally to excavate the river course, build kilns and fire bricks. With the experience of building Hanyang City, everything proceeded steadily, until one day in early September, Yu, who had previously gone out for reconnaissance, finally returned to the tribe. What was even more surprising was that he actually managed to bring back over 500 people. Additionally, there were over 200 plateau wild donkeys and alpacas. This immediately shocked you. However, what surprised you even more was that Yui actually brought back primitive high mountain tea leaves. Given this tribe's special product, you named this tribe of 500 people the High Mountain Tribe. All members took Gao as their surname. It just so happened that Ruyang Commandery was officially in need of a large workforce. You might as well just send them over directly to help with the construction. As for Yuno, you also have new plans. The area of Fuma Pass. You plan to build a county town there, primarily for military defense. You intend to have him go there to oversee the construction. However, Yuno was accustomed to freedom outside. He didn't want to be confined to one place forever. You didn't force him. You had no choice but to find another suitable person. After much deliberation, you thought Ingrue was more appropriate. He had joined the Han tribe long enough. It posed a certain threat to the tribe. He just lacked experience in building. So, you arranged for Duor and Shirtu to accompany Ingrue, to obstruct and corrupt from the sidelines. 2 days later, the freshly formed Fuma Pass preparatory group was completed. A total of 500 members. Among them, 300 were Hanyang residents, and 200 slaves, led by 3 main officials. Carrying a large amount of supplies and tools, they headed towards the northern valley. Meanwhile, at the Jade tribe, on this day, all the tribesmen were gathered together, boiling taro in the newly acquired iron pot. This method was just learned from the Han tribe. The tribesmen all watched the pot with anticipation. But just as they finished cooking and were about to share the food, the soup in the pot suddenly rippled in circles. Immediately after, the ground shook violently. At the same time, Shuda also noticed the situation. This was very similar to last winter, the scene when wild beasts attacked Hanyang City. When everyone was uncertain about the best course of action, the large convoy led by Zhou Fu appeared in their sight. At the forefront of the team were agile hunting dogs. Behind them followed herds of cattle, sheep, and horses, in a magnificent procession, with an imposing presence. Although the Jade tribe didn't recognize this team, but seeing the leader, wearing a shining silver crown identical to Shuda's, plus the countless livestock, they immediately guessed this was the Han tribe's team. Thousands of cattle and horses, and sheep covering the mountains and plains, encountered another tribe. Everyone stared in wide-eyed astonishment. The tribal chief Yutu secretly rejoiced in his heart. He calculated that if he could get a few plowing oxen, it would surely greatly improve the tribe's farming situation. However, when he made his request to Shuda, it was rejected. Shuda stated directly that the Han tribe was developing its own land, and plowing oxen were very scarce, unless the Jade tribe chose to join. Otherwise, there would be no possibility of exchange. As they were speaking, several naked children suddenly rushed out, clinging tightly to the Han tribe's lamb, crying and shouting that they wanted meat to eat and clothes to wear. The herding dogs, seeing this, immediately bared their teeth and pounced, trying to reclaim the lamb. The Jade tribe warriors quickly raised their spears, blocking in front of the children. Tensions immediately rose between the two sides. It turned out the Jade tribe normally mainly filled their hunger with taro. Meat was extremely scarce. After autumn arrived, the weather became increasingly cold. The children didn't even have a decent animal skin garment. They were truly unable to bear it any longer, which is why they resorted to this desperate measure. Yu Fu arrived and first blew a whistle, using dried meat to distract the fierce dogs. Then he took out dried meat to tease the children. The children gazed longingly at the dried meat, desiring to wear leather clothes. Lu Fu, however, told them that the sheep belonged to the Han tribe. If they wanted them, they would have to join the Han tribe. The children's mother cried heartbrokenly. In desperation, she gritted her teeth and proposed that the children join the Han tribe. However, the child clung tightly to his mother's belly, crying that he would rather not have clothes and stay with his mother. The scene of the mother and child crying together made everyone present tear up. Yutu watched this scene and understood in his heart. If he didn't agree to join the Han tribe soon, the tribe would likely fall into great chaos. In the end, he could only reluctantly lead his tribesmen to join. But the large number of livestock brought back by Yu Fu, although it strengthened the Han tribe's power, also brought new problems. Where would the feed for so many livestock come from? Yu immediately split the caravan into two. A portion took half the horses, to graze in the hilly grasslands outside Fuma Pass. The other portion drove the remaining cattle and horses to Luoyang County, grazing them along the river. They would return to the city after winter set in and snow fell. After making proper arrangements, Yu again ordered Yu Fu to collect crops from various places. Just then, urgent news arrived from Luoyang County. As winter approached, many tribes seeking survival joined the Han tribe, causing a surge in population. Food reserves were quickly running out. Yu furiously slammed the table. These people clearly wanted to take advantage of the chaos. After careful consideration, Yu decided on a two-pronged approach. On one hand, reduce Luoyang County's food supply, changing it to only 2 bowls of thin porridge per day. On the other hand, first slaughter 5,000 sheep for curing. At the same time, Yu planned to organize an eastern expedition after the river froze, issuing a strict order, requiring newly joined households to reclaim 10 mu of land before winter. Those who failed to complete the task would be directly expelled. After receiving the order, Dashu of Luoyang County immediately urged the newcomers to reclaim wasteland. He also planned to build a new city to settle them. Meanwhile, Xianxia collected many wild silkworm cocoons. Yu led everyone to modify the silk reeling machines, and successfully reeled out silk, which Yu handed to Xiao Dai, instructing him to quickly weave the Han tribe's first bolt of silk. At the same time, Bai Qi reported that the movable type carving was complete. Yu also thought of using metal, movable type and letters. So Yu led your students to work day and night, and soon carved out letters of various sizes. After Dazue cast the movable type with alloy, Yu focused on researching ink. After repeated experiments, Yu finally formulated the optimal recipe. However, after the printing workshop was ready, it got stuck at the character selection stage. At a crucial moment, you had a flash of inspiration. compiling a movable type catalog. Only then could the printing work proceed smoothly. The selected poems also began to be printed. Meanwhile, the new tribe's caravan was on the brink of death. They had previously been robbed by the Han tribe and then pursued by Shui Yuanlang. Their original team of dozens was reduced to just over 10 people. Along the way, they were so hungry they even killed their mounts to eat. They barely managed to escape back to the bamboo house by the sea. After Elder Shang woke up, recalling the encounters along the way, he couldn't help but weep bitterly. The squad leader helplessly stated that even if they had bought a cart back then, the road was full of bumpy stones, and it would have been impossible to bring it back. In fact, Elder Shang had wanted to bring a sample back to replicate, but they lacked suitable tools, and everything came to nothing. In the blink of an eye, it was corn harvest season. The tribesmen, following your taught methods, picked the corn, peeled and dried it, and threshed it, bustling with joy. During the winter months, you finally finished carving the coin wax molds, designing patterns for currencies of different denominations. To cast qualified steel dies, you boldly attempted top-blown converter technology. After the technology succeeded, you produced currency production line equipment. After the workers mastered the coin minting process, gleaming copper coins continuously rolled off the production line. At this time, all students also graduated successfully. You selected suitable talents through an examination and established the Hanyang County Provisional Government. From the county magistrate to the staff of various departments, a complete management structure was thus established. The remaining dozens of people were divided into intern groups to follow and learn. They would be dispatched to various places for official duties next year. After arranging these matters, you went to Luyang County. Many new people had joined Luyang County, and the food supply was very tight. Group leader Dashu came to greet you. Everyone's eyes were filled with longing for food. But you frankly said you brought no food. If they wanted to eat meat, they should follow you to fish in the river. Everyone didn't believe that there could still be fish in the river on such a cold day. But you were confident, having brought your own fishing tools. Catching fish would be effortless. You first led people to select a location on the river. Drill holes and thread ropes. Like sewing a quilt, spread the large net under the ice. Then pull the ropes to open the fishing net. Before long, there was movement under the ice. Fish rushed to drill into the ice holes. One by one, they leaped out of the ice. The scene was spectacular. The crowd was about to rush down to pick up the fish. You quickly called a halt, worried that too many people would crack the ice. Wait for the fishing net to be pulled ashore. Everyone was surprised to find tens of thousands of fish, and the variety was rich. You had everyone move to another spot to continue fishing. You also had people use straw to block the inside of the ice holes, and continued to fish the next day. In one day, a total of over 200,000 fish were caught. Not only solved the food problem for Luyang Commandery, the surplus fish could also support other areas. More importantly, this winter catch yielded a large amount of fish maw. This was a key material for making strong glue. For the tribe's development of weapons and tools, it held great significance. After 3 days of busy work in Luyang Commandery, you returned to Hanyang City. The first thing was to go to the carpentry workshop to check the progress of composite bow production. At this time, in the carpentry workshop, most people were busy making bows. The plan was to complete 6,000 of them. Shuda believed there was no need to make composite bows. Longbows were fast and easy to use. To convince him, you found a few children to conduct an experiment. While inspecting the core siege crossbows in the carpentry workshop, you had a flash of inspiration, envisioning combining specially made arrow stones with the siege crossbow. Its power could be called a great weapon of war on the battlefield. But due to the current shortage of craftsmen, this super weapon could only temporarily be a prototype. To equip the city defenses on a large scale still required patient waiting. After the inspection, you returned to the county office. You began to advance the Han tribe's reform plan, taking Hanyang City as a pilot area to explore a new governance model. You asked Bai Qi, the head of the printing workshop, about the household registration, printing progress of the forms. After learning of the results, you selected 3 groups of outstanding interns and sent them to Luyang Commandery to take up positions. Subsequently, You began planning the New Year development and stability plan. To continue building Fuma Pass and Ruyang Commandery. Allocate population from Luyang Commandery for support. To alleviate local population pressure. At the same time, disperse and settle the southern migrating northern tribal alliances. To promote integration. In order to expand territory and acquire resources, you also planned to form land and water exploration caravans, departing separately from Luyang Commandery and Hanyang Commandery, to explore the northern and southern waterways. In addition, you set yourself the task of compiling the Han calendar and a legal code, and allocated classroom resources for the upcoming operational schools. However, a sudden crisis disrupted all plans. As the new year approached, temperatures rose. Dali discovered that the Ru River and water levels were rising abnormally, far exceeding the level of the same period in previous years. Worried about causing floods, after you conducted an on-site inspection, you confirmed that the moat's water level was also rising. You immediately took action, had the elders contact Luyang Commandery to understand the situation, arranged for Dali to prepare sandbags to block the city gates, ordered Yin Rue to inspect the sewers and do a good job of reassuring the populace, had Yumao block the connection between the moat and the Ru River's connecting mouth. Soon, news came from Luyang Commandery, confirming that the local water levels were also surging. It turned out that last summer, downstream, heavy rains caused flash floods, leading to landslides. The river channel was blocked by a large amount of earth and rocks, forming a dammed lake. As the lake water continuously accumulated, it eventually spread, causing upstream water levels to rise. Those small tribes that joined the Han tribe at the end of autumn were forced to migrate north precisely because their homes were flooded. Facing the crisis, you decisively decided to take proactive action, demanding Luyang Commandery mobilize 300 able-bodied young men. You yourself organized 100 people in Hanyang City. At the same time, prepared 23 small boats as well as tools, weapons, food, and other supplies. Considering that clearing the river channel might encounter large rock obstacles, you also arranged for people to make glycerin, in preparation for making explosives. For days later, all personnel and supplies were in place. You asked several team leaders who had seen landslides to confirm if they could find the blockage point. After receiving an affirmative answer, you decided to depart the next day. Before leaving, you entrusted the affairs of Hanyang County to Ing Run, instructing him to oversee both flood prevention and spring plowing preparations. In the early stages of the fleet's journey, as most people lacked boating experience, the progress was slow. After a morning of getting used to it, everyone gradually mastered the rhythm of rowing, and the speed increased. But the further south they went, the wider the water surface became. Many trees were half submerged in the water. Oars and iron hooks were often caught by submerged bushes and vines, severely hindering navigation. When night fell, they couldn't go ashore due to the waterlogged forests on both banks, so everyone had to make do with resting on the boats. You also specifically arranged for Gang Xiaohe and Liao Wangyuan to ensure safety. Early the next morning, everyone hastily ate some dry rations, and the fleet continued its journey south. On a winter morning, the water surface was covered in mist, and visibility was extremely low. Boating became exceptionally difficult. The group no longer rowed desperately, only occasionally stroking the water to let the boat maintain its direction with the current, drifting with the flow. As it approached noon, the heavy fog gradually dispersed. Suddenly, with a thump, something hit the side of a boat. On a boat at the front of the fleet, the clansman in charge of commanding shouted, "There's a dead tiger in the water." Hearing the shout, you immediately told everyone to stop rowing, and waited for that boat to come closer. After the two boats were side by side, you took a closer look. What tiger? It was clearly a cave lion. This cave lion had been dead for a long time. Its body was swollen like a large balloon, and its fur had turned white from being soaked. You immediately ordered the cave lion to be discarded, and forbade everyone from drinking river water again. They were to find a place to dock and melt accumulated snow and hidden ice for water. The young boat leader, scared, quickly used a long spear to push the cave lion's body away. After this, various animal carcasses continuously appeared along the way. Deer, wolves, wild boars, leopards, and even vampire deer and monkeys, forest wildlings. You only allowed people to cut off a few ox horns. No other corpses were to be touched. Around noon, the corpse of a giant appeared on the water. It was a pale-faced woman, lying prone on a piece of driftwood. As soon as you let the boat approach to check, unexpectedly, the woman suddenly began to struggle violently, her two hands clawing wildly at the water. Everyone was startled, but you reacted quickly, reaching out and pulling her onto the boat. The woman was soaked through, shivering uncontrollably from the cold. You quickly handed her your bearskin coat, gesturing for her to take off her wet clothes and put it on. You also gave her leavened bread and cured meat to eat. The fleet continued its journey. Animal carcasses were constant along the way. The woman watched, her face pale, but she said nothing, only curiously observing the people and boats around her. Until a large island appeared ahead. She suddenly became anxious, pointing at a small island in the lake and signaling not to approach. But everyone saw smoke rising from the island. Thinking they could make a fire there, cook, and eat something warm, they all demanded to dock. You thought that you had brought over 400 caddies of supplies, weapons and equipment were complete, and didn't take the woman's warning seriously at all. You still ordered to dock. The closer the boats got, the clearer everyone saw the situation on the island. It turned out that a live human sacrifice was taking place on the island. An old man with deer antlers on his head, and colorful feathers stuck all over, was dancing wildly. Two adults were holding a pair of twin boys, less than 2 years old, of the same mother, performing the act, about to throw into the water. Seeing this, you immediately shouted, "Row quickly and save them. If you can't save them, no one gets to eat." Hearing this, everyone quickly paddled towards the direction where the children were about to be thrown into the water. The boat you were on arrived first, scooped up the boy. The boy's belly was swollen round with water. Exhausted and out of strength, you had the boy lie prone on an overturned iron pot, pressed to induce vomiting. Another boat also rescued the girl, and brought her to your boat. After rescuing the children, you had the fleet circle the island, searching for a suitable landing spot. The Nian tribe on the island. The people saw the sudden appearance of the fleet. They were stunned speechless. They even thought the river god had descended. As soon as you landed and quickly arrayed into a defensive formation, the Nian tribesmen came chasing, holding 17 spears. A strong man charged at the very front. Without a word, you drew your bow and shot him through the thigh. The others, seeing this, halted their steps, not daring to advance further. Nian Mao, the Nian tribe leader, seeing the formidable weapons of the opposing side, decided to talk first. You stepped out of the formation and brandished your treasured sword. Clearly stated that the people would not be returned, and the land would also be claimed. Nian Mao, having no other option, temporarily retreated. Meanwhile, you arranged for people to cook, while keeping watch on Nian Mao and the tribal shaman. Felt that perhaps they could cooperate with you. Let you, on behalf of the tribe, leave this trapped antique. At this point, you sent someone to deliver a message. Said they could provide treatment for the injured strong men. Nian Mao immediately brought his people and rushed over. You had the snake tribe member, skilled in medicine, attend to the strong man, to treat his wounds. During this time, Nian Mao saw the rice in your bowl. He took out his tribe's unhusked rice for exchange. You, in turn, gifted him white salt. Nian Mao then asked if you could take them by boat away. You stated that you first needed to solve the flood problem, and had no time to help. To help Nian Mao understand the situation, you created a simple sand table on the ground, concealed the flash flood that triggered the landslide, the process of blocking the river channel and forming a colorful lake. Also used leaves to represent the message. Simulated the method of clearing the river channel. After understanding, Nian Mao agreed to send 2 people to act as guides, to help you find the blocked section of the river. The next day, you asked the girl if she wanted to return to her tribe or follow you. The girl hugged your arm, and tugged at the coat on her body, indicating she wanted to follow you. You decided to take them and set off. Nian Mao surprisingly personally acted as a guide, and also brought a tribesman. While the fleet was underway, you had the Yin clan youth use a valley flute to summon a giant infant, wrote a letter and placed it into a bamboo tube. and had the giant infant deliver it back to the tribe. Nian Mao saw you writing with paper and pen. He increasingly respected this tribe. Both admired your immortal realm and feared your power. After the fleet sailed southeast for most of the day, they finally found the place where the river channel was blocked. You climbed onto a large rock to observe. He only saw the downstream riverbed, dry and cracked, covered with prey. And above it there were even some shiny things.